Hello, hello, everyone. My name is Christy Lynn, and this is Mother Misfit Tarot. Welcome, welcome to the space. I am so excited, just as every weekend, to be able to deliver your message for you. So, I definitely feel like there's a lot of there's something about like catapulting, a catapulting energy, and something about caterpillars as well, like a green. I'm seeing like a green caterpillar, and it's like fat and chubby. And then it like stops and then it like kind of goes up. So it's like up like this and it's kind of like looking around. So I don't know if like summer where you are is really flourishing right now. I feel like it's hot but not too hot. It's breezy. I see lots of lush green grass and trees and just beautiful sun, partly cloudy, but there's enough blue in the sky to make a pair of blue jeans, as they say. Well, it's actually one person has ever said that to me. So, in all of my years on this beautiful green earth, blue green earth, um, I feel like, yeah, there's like some joy, there's happiness in the air and the energy, which is so great. I'm so happy for you guys. That is so good. Honestly, like after all that you guys have been through, you guys are feeling happy. There's happiness here. There's also about something about circumventing and ooh, what is that? What is that? It's a type of it's like the space-time continuum, but it's like the wormhole theory. But what is that? Like there's a specific Pacific, maybe something about the Pacific Ocean, specific wormhole theory, time travel. So let me see here. Einstein Rosen Bridge. That's what it is. Thank you, Jesus. Um, hmm. Yeah, something sticking out here from the Point Mag, the Point magazine, which I have no idea. I've never read their stuff before, so I can't advocate or vet for them by any means. All I can tell you is what my intuition's telling me to say. And when I had Googled it, there's this piece that says, "Why does Oppenheimer say wormhole?" And it's the description says, as he steals away the apple, Oppenheimer offers excuse to bore. Wormhole, a good golly physics pun. Yes, but also a wink at this cause and effect framing, asking where the budding physicist may have ended up if he had not taken back the apple versus where he did end up and the devastation his invention wrought. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, what's standing out from this is like the cause and effect framing, right? Karma, but it's also like speaking to how when not making certain decisions, how it creates a ripple effect. And the opposite also is true that every decision we do make has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So again, it's like I feel like that's EMC squared. E equals MC squared. Yeah. Every action has an opposite. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah, so that's Newton's third law of motion. In physics, this means whenever an object A exerts a force on object B simultaneously exerts a force on of equal magnitude in opposite direction back onto object A. That was from Wikipedia. I'm just looking at the little synopsis at the top of the Google search, which I don't quote Wikipedia, guys. So, in terms of like maybe this is something that you guys are studying now, because I feel very drawn into Newton's third law, action and reaction by Glenn Research Center at NASA. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm seeing the same explanation for NASA's website. So let's use NASA's explanation here. So Newton's third law, action and reaction, Sir Isaac Newton first presented his three laws of motion in the Principia Mathematica Philosophiae Naturalis in 1686. His third law states that for every action force in nature, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In other words, if object A exerts a force on object B, then object B also exerts an equal and opposite force on object A. Notice that the forces are exerted on different objects. Yeah. Applied to aerodynamics. Very cool. I was not very good at physics, TBH, guys. Oh, what are they saying in psychology? O'Reilly Media? No idea. Let me see. The Three Laws in Human Behavior by the Decision Lab. In Farnham Street. I'm gonna screenshot that. I want to look into that. So really feel like there is the law of karma. The universe keeps the score by Thomas Opong in Medium. Yeah. So what I'm gathering is like I think people are having the collective's having an awakening around karma. Not that you didn't know what karma was before, but like you're gaining a deeper insight as to how deep this actually goes and how it is applied and how it sort of like reverberates into your realities in your reality. Um, which is really fantastic because I feel like there's a sense of joy and there's a sense of clarity and there's a sense of assurance with this because I feel like you've known this, but you haven't quite been able to put your finger on it. You haven't been quite able to define it in such a way. And again, this is like what happens when the puzzle pieces come together and you're able to like start connecting the dots and you start seeing the mosaic when you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together and you're having an awakening. You have a sense of clarity, which is really great. I love that feeling. I love it. I love it. I'm really intrigued about this. Yeah, the human behavior. I'm definitely going to be screenshotting that one too by the decision lab and going into it. But um, later in my own time. But yeah, no, I think that's fabulous. So congratulations. Mm. It is not an easy feat having to go through the whole process of the fool's journey to be able to receive and achieve spiritual awakening. It means it's a good sign that you have overcome some major life lessons that you are completing cycles with. And as a reward for your hard work, you receive clarity, you receive insight, you receive your gifts in whatever sort of form that they manifest in. My little doggy Jackie. We'll see if he wants to come up here. I was going to put him up here to sit with us, but he's being a boob by the door. So we'll let him just be a boob because he's a senior. He can do what he wants. Mostly. Yes. Okay, so what else is going on? I think the biggest thing is right now is just continue, like exercising gratitude. I feel naturally you have been exercising gratitude, like because when you do have a spiritual awakening, all of a sudden things become a lot more clear, right? Things begin to lift. Old versions of ourselves begin to fall away that we've grown out of or that we've let go because it doesn't like the truth of what that sort of skin or what that layer of us, that version of us, was attached to, what that we, in our heart, in our soul, in our spirit, in our psyche, we were attached to something. But once you have done the shadow work, the healing work, and you've let that go, you're it's like you become ready for the newer version of you. You become ready for the newer chapter that you're calling in. And I feel like you've been calling this in for like 6 to 9 years for some, 3 to 6 years for others. It's been a long time. This has been a long cycle. Like this has not been an easy one for sure. And I think like it feels very, it's like troublesome, but there's also, hold on, they're saying something about Ophiuchus, Ophiticus. Again, I do not know Greek mythology. Okay, let's see. Ophius. No, it's not spelling that right. Ophiuchus. Not precocious, Google. Ophiticus. Ophiticus? Ophiticus. Oh, Ophiuchus. Ophiticus is a large constellation straddling. Oh, again, that's Wikipedia. Hold on, guys. Oh, Ophiuchus. Huh. Noirlab.edu. Ophiticus. I feel like Ophiticus is Ophiuchus. Is that am I saying it right? Someone let me know. Someone let me know if I'm saying this right. Okay, so according to noirlab.edu, oh, so the way it's spelled is Ophiuchus, 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 is derived from the Greek term ophis, which means serpent. Ophiuchus is associated with a figure from Greek mythology named Asclepius, sort of a butchering these days, who was a legendary healer and physician. Dude, are you guys healers? Are you guys doctors out there? According to the myth, As Asclepius, Asclepius was exceptionally skilled in the art of medicine and possessed the ability to resurrect the dead. Okay, well, that's kind of cool. Um, kind of. The story goes that Asclepius learned the secrets of healing from a serpent. In one version of the myth, he was taught by the serpent when he observed a snake bringing healing herbs to another injured snake. Asclepius used the knowledge to become a renowned physician, and he became so skilled that he could even bring the dead back to life. This act of reviving the dead caught the attention of the gods, particularly Hades, the god of the underworld, who was concerned that Asclepius would upset the balance between life and death. As a result, Zeus, the king of the gods, struck Asclepius down with a thunderbolt and placed him among the stars as the constellation Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus. The ecliptic passes through the Ophiuchus. The sun, moon, and the planets pass through this constellations as seen from Earth. Blah, blah. So, Rasal Haig, forgive me guys if you hear outside, there's people out there. They're drinking. It's downtown. Yellowknife. They're loud. So apologies if you hear people screaming outside. Rasal Hog is the brightest skull. That's a skull. The brightest skull. Well, that could be something too. Crystal skulls. Maybe that's something Errol's researching. The brightest star in Ophiuchus, I'm just going to say Ophiuchus. It is a binary star system composed of a white main sequence star and a fainter companion. There's also a Sibalra, Sibalra ray, Sibal ray. It's a beta, it's the beta Ophiuchi. Sibal ray is a red giant star. Sabic, Eta Ophiuchi. Sabic is a binary star system consisting of two blue-white stars. Yed prior delta Ophiuchi and Yed posterior epsilon Ophiuchi. These two stars are an optical double star. I'm not making this stuff up, guys. I do not know these words. So just bear with me. Oh, I was like, okay, I was literally just gonna Google like, how do you say this word? And in this, you can't see it, it's blurred, but if you guys check it out, like go check it out for yourself, right? At noirlab.edu, and you scroll down, they have the Latin name, the genitive forms, the English name, and then the pronunciation, and then the abbreviation. So the English name is the serpent bearer. Interesting. To pronounce it, it's Ophiuchus. 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 Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to be practicing that one. Excuse me. Very interesting. Wow. This is beautiful. Guys, you gotta go check this out. This is so cool. Oh my gosh, I love space so much. I haven't seen beautiful nebulae like this a long time. Oh, so pretty. Pretty, 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 pretty. 88 could also be significant as well for you guys. Okay, very cool. So again, with the Greek mythology, I am not an expert in such history or stories. I know some, but not enough to really speak to it. But I feel like there's like a strong tie here, a strong sense of healing, right? Because we were talking a lot about healing and like as you are shedding the older versions of yourself and loosening the grip of like who you were and you're beginning to understand, or at least this is what the sort of vibe is for today's reading, is you're going to begin, or they want you to understand, they want you to do some reflection and prayer on this, speak to the Lord about this as well, always bring everything to God, right? And to use your discernment, please. Very, very interesting. So with this, when you are letting go of the older versions of yourself, and only you know what this is, right? If it's some sort of attachment to a certain type of relationships, the version of you that was attached to a very specific type of person, very specific type of behavior, perhaps, or even like money or alcohol, whatever, fill in the blank, because there's so many, I don't know how many people I'm reading for. Everyone's a little bit different. But in terms of what I'm sensing is like this attachment to the older version of yourself who needed to be loved by a certain type of person, regardless of the type of behavior that they were portraying and what they were showing you, right? They're fruits of their spirit. And there was a deep part of you, a deep wound that was attached to that type of wounding from that type of person, right? And within that sort of atmosphere, what happens is like, so when we're talking about, the law of attraction, the law of cause and effect, is when we have these inner wounds within us, what happens is that when they are unhealed, unresolved, unnoticed, suppressed or repressed even, what can happen is that it's sort of like it's like a Well, Archangel Michael likes to use the terminology of like a black crystal, right? So if you want to have a visual, you can see it as a black crystal or like even as like a black seed, right? It's a wound. And when wounds are sort of like internal, and they fester, they can begin to cause pain. And especially if it's in the unconscious, when we're not aware that it's sitting there, what can happen is that internally, because all of our energetic field is the torus of how our energetic field kind of like shifts and moves constantly, right? What happens is that it begins to start sending out a signal that there's something here that needs to be looked at, painful, some sort of wound or some sort of painful experience that needs to be looked at. Because as you are manifesting from your heart and your heart's desires of the type of relationship you want, just for example, right? We're going to roll with that sort of metaphor or that sort of example. When your heart is wanting, a certain kind of love, a certain type of love, and you have it visualized, you know what you want, and it's beginning to emanate, right? But if it's emanating and it has that sort of black crystal or that dark seed, that wound, unhealed, untouched wound within, that's also going to be emanating from your heart space. Oh, cool. I I was messing around with the setting. Oops, with the settings and stuff, and we're doing like I'm using some kind of dark room feature lighting things, and it's just like anyway. I digress. I digress. Yes. So with that seed, that wound is emanating from that, right? From your heart space. And so you in unconsciously and unknowingly, and unintentionally as well, like you are attracting that same type of person and experience into your life. And you become your heart, your mind, your spirit, when it's holding that sort of unhealed wound, it has formed an attachment to this version of like person, place, or thing, but person who's attracted to a specific kind of person, specific type of personality, behavior, words, actions, right? Like if you're attracted to very hypersexualized people, right? There's a wound within you that's like, okay, I'm attracted to only attractive people who are hypersexual, right? Um, Whereas if you heal that wound, and I feel like you have a different version of yourself now that has outgrown that older version, where you are now attracted to character, you are now attracted to light, you're attracted to someone's heart and like mind, body, and spirit, and not just the sexual part, right? And it's not to shame, and it's not to say like that experience was wrong, like no, no, absolutely not. I'm sure we have all been there. Okay. Like I was also very hypersexualized in throughout my 20s. I mean, I was on drugs for most of that and partying a lot. And it just came with the territory. Don't recommend it for anyone. But that's just a part of my story too. So it's not a judgment, and it's not to shame, and it's like not to shame that experience, because it taught you something very valuable. And again, it's not about right or wrong, right? When you're talking about like behavior being right or wrong, it's like murder, right? Like, red rum, it definitely can be, yeah, it's either good or bad, right? Like that's a very serious thing. But the thing is that when we're talking about for example, attraction and like the type of relationships that we're attracting, when we are holding that sort of inner wound, um, and we're attracting a certain type of person, they're, hold on, just wanting to make sure that they want me to keep going with this because, yeah, so need that, guys. Hmm. Okay, and when we're attracting that type of person, when we're having that unhealed wound, And say that wound had something to do with an abandonment wound, for example, right? Because that was very, very common. And we found maybe in our childhood or in our in the culture and society that we all grow up in, like, come on, like sex and women and men and all this stuff. There was a whole culture, a whole like generations where sex was like hyper propagated, right? Like there was a lot of propaganda, there was a lot of conditioning in movies and music videos, all this stuff. So it was, of course, very ingrained into a lot of people. Um, but not to mention that sexuality and our sexual drive is um, a very natural experience to have as we are developing from like a young child into our adulthood, right? Um, and Carl Jung, right, did a lot of he has a lot of psychological theories around human development and that kind of thing. And so, and Eric Erickson has, yeah, like he does allude to certain sort of levels and steps, but like Carl Jung was the one that he spoke a lot about like sexuality and that kind of thing. So it's very natural. But again, if we grew up in a society where it was very like hypersexualized, right? Like women were hypersexualized, there was a certain standard that people had to look like and be like, all this stuff. And if you weren't at this standard, then you weren't deemed unconsciously, subconsciously, in some ways consciously, but you weren't really deemed as a suitable mate because you weren't super hypersexualized, right? And so if there was an abandonment wound within us, and say we've found connections earlier on, like in adolescence or our 20s, where we attracted very attractive people, but they were also very hypersexualized. And that also comes with a lot of wounds too, right? Like if we are ourselves hypersexualized people, and I think there's I'm not here to say what what is that measurement, like what deems like a hypersexual person. Like if it becomes to the point, and this goes for any behavior, right, or substance or whatever, right? Like I'm an addictions counselor, so that's kind of like my forte. But again, it's very relative to the person's experience and like the why behind everything. And so like when it comes to sex and hypersexualization, is if someone is addicted to sex or porn and that kind of thing, and they are going and they can't stop having multiple partners, cheating on their husband or wives and stuff like that, right? Buying night uh dancers, right? You know what I'm saying? And that kind of thing, right? So then it can cause a lot of pain, and it's causing a lot of dysfunction in a person's life, right? Their quality of life goes down because of it, but they're still getting a rush. They're addicted to that rush. They're addicted to the closeness, or some people are addicted to like sneaking around and stuff like that, right? So we can like really get into it, right? Now, for some folks who don't experience, like who don't have the hypersexuality to that extreme where it's like a must have, right, regardless of what circumstance they find themselves in. But if there is a layer or a lifestyle, I should say, of hypersexuality, and that is what brings two people together, that forms a bond. And depending on the nature of the relationship and the foundation and the basis of the relationship, if they're both hypersexual, and that's kind of like what that sort of chemistry and that attraction is what brought them together. If they do last past that sort of like initial chemistry, usually those hypersexuality, super passionate, very high chemistry relationships will often fizzle out right away. But if they are able to make it through that, what could happen is if there's a wound that they're both coming together for, that they don't subconsciously, right? This is all unconscious. They don't realize this, but they're attracted to a certain type of mate because they're filling a need underneath, that abandonment wound. There's some sort of Um, there's some sort of need that's being met, whether that's like someone needs to be seen, they need to be heard, they need to be held, or, for myself, it was very much like, I equated sex to love because that's what I was always taught growing up was like, you only have sex with people that you love. And so in my mind, it meant that love equals sex equals love, right? And it created a very very big distortion within myself in my reality and my psyche. I had a very strong belief system that this is what it meant, and and that to be desired was a good thing, or it was yeah, it was an addiction, you know. Okay, so breaking all of that down, having Ian, 1 second, let me check that out. Clean that up, please.
Yeah.
You want him out here to help you with the popcorn?
Uh, I'll let him out when it's like halfway through.
Okay. Well, he's going to be scratching out the door now. He knows. Here, come, Jack. Come say hi to the people. Say hi. Yeah. Say hi to the people. Look. Look. Aw. Say hi. Who's that? Who's that? Right here. Look. Who's that? Oh, 저 coochie. Cute patoots. Yeah? Do you want to come over on this side? Come. Mm. 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 My cute patoots. Okay, yes. So, excuse me. Oh my gosh. Okay, they want me to keep going. Okay, so coming back to if two people have a similar type of wound, now we're starting to play a little bit on attachment theory at this point, right? But without getting too sort of in the weeds or in the boonies with it, we're going to keep it to speaking about the law of attraction. And so we are attracting a certain type of experience, a certain type of person. And what may have attracted us in the beginning, whether it's like hypersexuality or we equated love to look a certain way or a belief system, a version of us that needed to have this type of person in our life in order for us to feel valued, to feel seen, to be heard, to be loved, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Again, it's all relative and it's not, there's no shame. There is no zero judgment here because, well, one, because we're all growing. These are here. I got them.
Come on, buddy. Come on. Let's go.
See you later.
There's my dog. He's helping clean up his puppy.
My son spilled popcorn. That's what it was. All I heard was a like, oh no, what was that? Yes, and so attracting a certain type of experience to now, if we take it a step like an octave higher, a step higher, when we're talking about spirit, like spiritually, we've all come here to fulfill a very specific soul contract. And we had very specific life lessons laid out for ourselves prior to being born, prior to coming down to earth. And so typically, usually, most of our relationships that we have experienced have already been preordained in some capacity. We wanted to have a specific type of like our from our parents to our sibling, all of it was sort of was preordained. Most of our relationships have also been like we chose for ourselves to have to experience so we can learn more about ourselves and to heal and to ascend into higher versions of who we're meant to become and who it is that we truly are, right? By shedding the old versions of ourselves. Now, with and I say like most relationships are ordained. I because there's free will, right? There's free will in the matter as well. That like you know, and when we're operating from our own will and not God's will, we can make all kinds of mistakes, and we usually do make all kinds of mistakes, right? But again, if like once you experience like so many trials, tribulations, challenges, lessons to be learned in cycles. This is why cycles are so important. This is why, karmic relationships, karmic lessons are so important because they help to strengthen us. They help us to learn more about who it is that we are and to begin to detach from the versions of us that no longer serve. Right. And you hear this a lot. And we share about this a lot in my readings. Like I'm a teacher by trade, not professionally, but like I don't have the teaching degree. I mean, but this is what I do. I've been teaching and doing readings for many many years, and have gone through my own very intense training as well. Right, formal and informal training. Informal in the sense that it's like my spiritual training was very like formal in the spiritual sense, but not in like I went to a college for spiritual training. You know what I mean? Anyway. So very clear. Do you notice that I'm being very like they're getting me to be very and well and I'm also I feel very inclined to be very clear about it because it's very important as you are embarking on the spiritual journey that you remain open. You remain open to the experience, open to the teachings, and to also trust in your own internal knowing, right? And again, always bring everything to God. Always check in with Him first. Always, always, always. And yeah, so where were we? Where were we? I have some tea. Oh yes, thank you, Spirit. So as we are sort of learning and letting go of older versions of ourselves, what is happening here spiritually and internally as we're healing? Because the healing journey and the spiritual journey are one and the same. In my opinion, that's how I roll. That is the teachings that I hold and the process in which I teach from. They're one and the same, right? And so oh, something's coming up here as well around like how an elder once told me, a Dene elder once told me, I don't want to say his name, but he knows who he is. Um, and I shared his story before. What he shared with me was that way back in the day, indigenous people, Dene people, like we like in our language in Dene, there's different dialects, but Dene Soothene, um, we don't have a word for healing in our language in the sense where we're going to see a counselor and we're healing or emotional healing, right? The only word that we have for healing is nesejeke, which means to hold things together, to put things back together, right? In a sense of like closing up a physical wound, right? Like I don't know if you guys can see that, but I got an early scar there. Yeah, I'll share that with you another time. But to close a wound or like to put fabric together with glue or something like that, right? Um, and that was really prominent because back then, before colonization had come to Turtle Island into our area, we never had to, in the traumatic impact that had on our ancestors, like two generations ago, a generation ago, um, had on our people, and how that's caused so much, cause and effect down the lineage, right? It caused generational trauma, intergenerational trauma and harm and curses and that kind of thing too, right? Addictions, trauma, and how that manifests going down. I do a lot of work in terms of like teaching and helping to support people and understanding what's going on within themselves and like what might be going on in their dynamics, or what is going on in their, closest relationship dynamics, their familial dynamics, work dynamics, et cetera, and how they can begin to slowly but surely like begin to change little by little, right? But the first step is always awareness. And so I teach a lot of that in the wellness programs. Healing the Legacy is a more one-on-one intensive. It's more of an apprenticeship program. So if you guys are interested, please go check that out. But very, very good, because like I'm a firm believer that knowledge is power. When you're able to understand like what the heck is going on, as you guys had the spiritual awakening, you had that sort of enlightenment, that exceptional, profound enlightenment that brings so much joy and peace and clarity. Like it's so rich, right? It's so good. And the beautiful thing is too, and maybe the not so great thing, because at the same time you can hold two truths, two opposite and opposing truths at the same time, right? It could be terrible, but also like very, very good, very cool. Um, that when you have let go of that older version of yourself, right? Because you've gone through a painful experience, you had a painful relationship that didn't end well, right? And what that was teaching you was that wound, right? That wound that was, reverberating. You were manifesting from that level of consciousness, that level of understanding of yourself, and you called in a relationship, and they probably had a similar wound, or had, if we get a little bit deeper into like attachment theory and relationship dynamics and how that plays out, um, that relationship dynamic had to play out in a certain way in order for that wound to be witnessed and to be seen. Yeah. And so that first step is always awareness. And now, after having done the work as you have, right? Congratulations again. Dope. High five. That's amazing. Celebrate yourself. Like, really celebrate yourself. It's not easy, nor is it fun. So, but you did it. You did it. And you're much better because of it. I can tell, I can sense it. And now the integrating of the wisdom and the understanding of the lessons. And so that first step is always awareness, right? And as the relationship sort of progresses or digresses, regresses in some ways, um, again, it depends on the situation. Things get broken down to the fundamental pieces of like, is this the type of relationship that I want? Because having two hypersexualized people can cause a lot of issues, right? If the foundation, again, it comes back to that sort of macrocosm, understanding of what's happening globally, and microcosm and what's happening internally and into our personal relationships, our communities, is that everything that was built upon deception or a faulty foundation that wasn't built upon, God's principles, is coming down. And so there was something that happened in that relationship that you needed to see. And you needed to see the version of yourself that was attracted to that type of person, that type of behavior. And you healed that wound because it brought awareness to it. And so through that intentional process of healing, now you're coming back to yourself. You've learned a lot about yourself, I'm sure, because that is a very that is a very direct cause of the healing process. We must know ourselves at this deep, deep core level in order to transform and to grow. So congratulations again. And as you are letting go and detaching from that version of yourself, it could feel very vulnerable. It could feel awkward, and it could feel lonely at times. But this is the really important time where, well, throughout all this process, it's really important. Like, you should always be attached to God, like, but really, like, especially during this time, as you are detaching from that older version of yourself, that this renewal phase, right, and recovery phase, really stay close to the Most High. Ask Him and invite Him into your mind, into your heart, into your spirit. Ask Jesus to align your thoughts, words, and actions with His will. You can turn your will over to Him so you can align with His will and not yours. and watch your life transform. Watch everything align perfectly and according to his will, which is everything. So, which is everything. And it's always for the best too, right? So, oh, okay. Um, Something about tailgating is significant here. Oof, dog hair. I could see it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Something about tailgating is significant. Persephone. No. Her again with the Greek. What is going on? That's so cool. Who are you? Just kidding. Personifi. Per. What does that mean? Oh, so I was gonna put personifi, personifi. I don't think I'm saying that right. I'm gonna look that up in a second. But as I was like typing it in, what caught my eye was perspicacious. Perspicacious. I'm learning new words. Love it. So perspicacious, according to dictionary.com, is an adjective that describes someone who has keen mental perception, acute insight, and sharp judgment. It is commonly used to praise an individual's ability to quickly notice and accurately understand things that are obscure or difficult to grasp. Very cool. Very cool. Astute is another way. Sagacious. Ooh, suggests wisdom, good judgment, and farsightedness. I like that. Saga. Saga. Shis. Yeah. Sagacious. Sagacious. No. Okay, I'm just being silly now. Perceptive focuses on the ability to notice details and read situations accurately. Penetrating highlights a mind that gets right to the core of a complex issue, according to Merriam-Webster. So here's like an example, and then we'll move on to the other thing. The perspicacious detective noticed the subtle discrepancies in the suspect's alibi. Ooh. Her perspicacious observations about the market trends allowed her to make a highly profitable investment. Very good. Okay. Persephone. Oh, got it. Thank you. Oh man, that was brutal. Persephone. Okay. There's this show on, I think it's Netflix. Oh, what is it? I started watching it and it has to do with like the Greek gods and stuff like that. It seemed kind of cool. I can't remember what it's called now. I have to look it up. But yeah, maybe I should watch it. Let's see. Not that like, some shows are not always accurate, but that just came to mind. Um, Persephone, Theoi, Greek mythology, theoi.com. Again, I can't vet for this website or what I'm led to. Persephone. Okay. Persephone was the goddess queen of the underworld, wife of god Hades. Interesting. Oh, treat what? Interesting. Interesting. So there was made mention to both Hades and Persephone. Interesting. Interesting. She was also the goddess of spring, growth, who was worshipped alongside her mother Demeter in the Eleusinian mysteries. The agricultural based cult promised its initiates passage to a blessed afterlife. Persephone was titled Kor, the maiden, as the goddess of spring's bounty. Once upon a time, when she was playing in a flowery meadow with her nymph companions, Kor was seized by Hades and carried off to the underworld as his bride. Her mother Demeter despaired at her disappearance and searched for her throughout the world, accompanied by the goddess Hecate bearing torches. When when she learned that Zeus had conspired in her daughter's abduction, she was furious and refused to let the earth fruit until Persephone was returned. Zeus consented, but because the girl had tasted of the food of Hades, a handful of pomegranate seeds, she was forced to forever spend a part of the year with her husband in the underworld. Her annual return to Earth in spring was marked by the flowering of the meadows and the sudden growth of a new grain. Her return to the underworld in winter conversely saw the dying down of plants and halting of growth. Interesting. Yeah, this is very, very interesting. Yeah, okay. So that is relevant for somebody. So there's something really interesting about this because now, if we're talking about Greek mythology in this context, and when we are learning, I feel like there's something to do with, hold on, like a tragic romance in Greek mythology, widely considered Orpheus and Eurydice is defined by love, a daring rescue, and a heartbreaking final mistake. Right. Okay, so this was played out in The Sandman. This was played out in The Sandman. I don't want to give you guys like spoilers or anything if you haven't seen it, but this is the only reference that I'm able to attribute this to. Cool. Maybe you guys can school me on this. I think this would be pretty awesome. Um, yeah, yeah. So in terms of like, hold on. Okay. I'm getting some insights on this, but they want me to wait. They want me to just wait, and we're going to get into your reading here because there's something very spectacular about this insight that you're going to be gaining. And it's through this exploration of self that you're able to really understand the note, the tone. It's like the tonality of what you've just gone through, but also setting the new tone, the new trend, the new vibe for your new chapter. And as you're integrating this really important lesson, the cycle that you just closed, it's really important again that like listening to your heart, listening to your internal song is going to be really important. Where is this taking you? What is this teaching you? You know, who are you being led by? Of course, always be led by the Holy Spirit, by God, Jesus. Um, and you will never be led astray ever. And when you are in alignment with Him, with God, um, and Jesus, there's a true nature that comes forth from you that is undescribable. Um, it's like you're led by pure love, the purest form of love that you'll ever experience on this earth. Woo! It just got slashed. Okay. And so, yes, like I feel like you're doing some final tuning. There's a lot of music metaphors. Maybe you're a musician or you love music. I love music. Classical music is dope too. I have lots of different genres I'm into. Except country. I don't do country. There's like maybe two or three country songs only from my childhood, but other than that, and they're not on any of my lists, my playlists. I don't listen to them on my own time for fun, right? It's like whenever I hear them at a dance or whatever, um, then I'm like, oh, cool, I know that song. So yeah, I feel like there's a tonality here, and there's something about a remembering that's going to be really significant. Tying up loose ends. You feel like there's a lot of, or you feel like there's loose ends that you need to tie up. Um, Something about Fortune 500 companies again. Something about agriculture is really important. The underworld is so interesting that that came through. I felt like that was a consistent sort of thing that's got my curiosity piqued. So again, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, fill in the blanks as needed. I trust that it's finding the right person. Uh, needs to hear this at the right time. Yeah, Orpheus. That story of Orpheus. So interesting. Something about catapulting again. Catapulting. Grass. Grass. The grass is greener. Grass is greener. I think I might need to take just a little quick break. Yeah. One sec, guys.